Hi, this is Enaa, and I just got a request to say something about the Arab revolutions. And since I was planning on doing this anyway, it seemed like an appropriate time. Those of you who watch the news, even superficially, over at least the last 6 months, have probably become familiar with the names of the following countries: Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Syria, Jordan, Yemen, Bahrain, just to name a few. And if you've been following the news even further back, at least until 2009, you know about the Green Movement in Iran. And I want to state my position unequivocally on this channel. In all these countries, without exception, I support political freedom and the overthrow of autocracies, monarchs, and dictators by the people themselves. This is not a radical concept to me. And the truth is, when you a lot of the news coverage about the Arab Spring, the Arab revolutions, has been, of course, not only uninformative, but rather misinformative. Too often, it seems that commentators and politicians can't get it through their heads that people can actually rise up because their conditions are so bad, so oppressive, that they want it to be changed. And we've been getting a lot of this for those, especially in Egypt, who are attributing the revolution to the machinations of the Muslim Brotherhood, or who are attributing, in the case of Glenn Beck, the Egyptian revolution to some sort of George Soros Obama funding. These people, conservatives, liberals alike, not too long ago were saying to us, the Arabs are naturally backward. They can't reach democracy on their own. They can't exercise freedom because of their culture or whatnot, some sort of racist, orientalist crap. And now that it actually happens, now that people in the Middle East are rising up and casting off their chains, they still spit on them and still can't accept that they're actually fighting and dying for freedom, because that's what they're doing. And furthermore, these people's conception of democracy and freedom, the conservatives and liberals especially, was the invasion of Iraq, which was a graveyard that they called freedom. This channel also recognizes that, especially in the case of Libya, that the situation is very complicated. That there's been fighting between Muammar Gaddafi and opposition forces. However, although I wish for a defeat of Gaddafi, I under no circumstances support any intervention in the Middle East by the United States or its imperialist allies. That is an uncompromising position of this channel. And there's been another position on the left that, at the very least, seems to believe the enemy of my enemy is my friend. In the case of, say, Libya, Syria, or even Iran, because the leaders of these countries sometimes take an anti-US posture or even declare themselves to be socialist, that somehow that's excusable and that those who are rebelling against them are simply agents of imperialism, CIA agents, Zionists, or whatnot. That is not so. The Iran regime, for instance, has murdered thousands of communists and instituted a theocracy and denied its population basic political rights. I, under no circumstances, support the Iranian regime, or the Syrian, or the Libyan. The leaders of those countries are enemies of their populations. And lest this seem to be driving me into some sort of I will back US imperialism, I know who the US is supporting. It is the dictators and the monarchs of the Middle East. It is the apartheid regime in Israel. It is the theocracy in Saudi Arabia. When the US decries Mahmoud Ahmadinejad for his repression, they didn't seem to have quite much of a problem 30 or 40 years ago when it was the Shah doing pretty much the same deal. those on the left who support or defend the regimes of Syria, Libya, or Iran should be ashamed of themselves. And in doing so, they have shamed socialists everywhere. Now, it's also the fact that for too long, secular alternatives in the Middle East have been repressed by dictators, whether this is nationalist, democratic, socialist, or communist, or whatnot. These voices have not been really allowed to be heard. So right now the situation is in flux. In Egypt, a military council and the population that still clamors for change. There are those who seem to believe that there's a one set path, a linear passage, whether it's to socialism, democracy, or whatever. These are people who may not have access to the information that some of us do have. They might not know all the ins and outs debates of socialism and democracy, but they are learning through their struggle to emancipate themselves, through their bravery and their courage against dictators and tyrants. The people of the Middle East have set an example that proudly ranks alongside the workers of Petrograd in 1917, Barcelona in 1936, and the Parisian general strike of 1968. And they will learn and they will make mistakes in their struggle. But we should not worry about those mistakes. We should not worry about those people in the Middle East, whether in Egypt, Tunisia, or wherever. We should worry with them, be engaged in dialogue with them, and in solidarity with them, as this channel is. This is Enaa. Until next time.